You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared. I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show, live on YouTube, obviously podcast from iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Mixed Combat Radio, and discuss all things boxing, MMA, and everything in between. Like I said, hit that like button, share the show, subscribe, call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue if you are international. Email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com to get a free international call-in link. All that information is below on the screen if you want to see it again. But yeah, so much to get into because, God, a lot of breaking news came out today, I feel like. I mean, maybe last night some news came out, like the Max Holloway, Brian Ortega news. That was last night, I believe, where that was broken about when that fight will be happening. Obviously in the UFC MMA portion of the show in the second half of the show. Plus Mikey Garcia versus Richard Commey, all but set. That came out, very early this morning. And plus, obviously, the UFC 230 news of Valentina Shevchenko versus Sijara Eubanks. Oh, God. It's going to be an interesting show. But definitely call in. I want your takes, your opinions. Let's debate all these topics. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Santiago's already there. Rob told me he was going to call in, have a little UK hour reunion, but, I doubt it.
I want smoke.
Just saying. Shout out to Fighter IQ, a.k.a. Ron, the mastermind, saying, what's good to y'all? What's good, Ron? You were at the Brandon Figueroa fight, I believe. Would love to have you call in and give your take on being there live, especially with F.A. Agabi. God damn, what an insane fighter that he is. Definitely can't wait to talk about all these topics, get into it. So let's do it, because obviously we do have a lot of breaking news today, but it's not a ton of news. It just happens to all have been breaking the last, 12 hours or so. And like I said, let's get into it. And by way of Kenneth Bourrier, a good friend of the show, a guy that I've talked to quite a bit. In my mind, he broke the news, even though him and Dan Rayfield posted at the same time. I'm giving it to my boy Kenneth on Twitter, saying, looks like Mikey Garcia versus Richard Commey is set to take place in January. More details to follow. This is good. I know I saw some people kind of hate on this a little bit. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know that I've been very adamant that Mikey Garcia should not be moving up 2 weight divisions and fighting probably the most dangerous guy in that weight class. May not be the best guy in that weight class, but he's definitely the most dangerous guy in that weight class, in Earl Spence. I can bring up examples of Triple G, Kell Brook, Loma Rigondeaux, Canelo, Amir Khan, and I can go down that list. I know people might bring up, obviously, the Roy Jones, John Ruiz comparison, but I think we can all be a little bit smarter than that and agree that John Ruiz was not the most dangerous heavyweight at the time. Like Earl Spence is the most dangerous welterweight at the time. Like Loma was the best and most dangerous junior lightweight at the time. Like, let's not really get into that information or those comparisons, I should say, because they're just not accurate. I've heard people comparing it to Manny Pacquiao. When Manny Pacquiao moved up 2 weight divisions and fought Oscar De La Hoya in 2008, guess what? That was Oscar De La Hoya in 2008. That was not Earl Spence in his prime destroying motherfuckers out there. It just is a bad comparison, a bad juxtaposition on the surface, let alone when you really start peeling back the layers of the comparison. It's just wrong. This is much more of a Rigondeaux Loma, a Kelbrook Triple G. It is. And we have a long, long line of a case study of those fights not working well for the guy moving up 2 weight divisions. Just not a smart idea. And I said Mike Garcia versus Richard Commey, which was his IBF mandatory, very early on, it seemed, made perfect sense. Kenneth Boyer alludes to it being the co-main to Spence Porter in January. I'm going to add to that speculation and rumor and say that this would probably be the first card on the Fox deal. It would be maybe a Sean Porter, Earl Spence double feature with, obviously, Mike Garcia versus Richard Commey, and that would be fantastic. And I know that might be a setup to, obviously, Mikey versus Spence. And when it comes to that, bridge, when we get to that bridge, obviously we can discuss it. But that sort of dual headline, double header on Fox potentially, I mean, goddamn. It's amazing. So I love this news. I think Mike Garcia versus Richard Commey is a fantastic fight on paper. It sets order to the division, and it's Mikey actually defending his belt, which I feel like he hasn't done in some time. I'm tired of him sort of weight jumping and headhunting. Stick to a weight class and try to clear it out. There's names here. Richard Commey is one of them. A guy that arguably did not lose to Robert Easter Jr. A guy that definitely, in my opinion, beat Denis Shafkov, even though he got robbed in Russia. A guy that is top 5 in the division. Amazing boxing skill, great power, great athlete. This is going to be a competitive and fun fight. And I know some people will obviously pick, I would say not some people, most people will pick Mike Garcia to win. And they should. I'm going to pick Mike Garcia to win this. However, this is a competitive, fun fight. And if you combine it well with, certain cards, certain pairings, it could be a great sort of night for us boxing fans, honestly. Jay saying UFC 230, sad face. Yes, we're going to get to that in the second half of the show and the MMA portion of it. Definitely just depressing. Don't want to get into it right now. But anyways, what else? Any more information about this that I want to get to? They are sending back the contracts to the IBF, I believe, to get it confirmed. But this is all but set in stone for, again, January, as Kenneth Boyer states. Most likely, in my opinion, on Fox. And probably in LA if they promote it right. But let's get to the last boxing news of the day. So, because it's not a lot of boxing news of the day. So if you want to call in and just talk boxing, call in right now, 323-870-4051, press 1 to get in the queue. Isaac Dogboe, one of the greats right now. We are blessed to have him. Going on Twitter and saying, I'm delighted to announce that I have extended my co-promotional agreement on a long-term deal with Top Rank Boxing. RSAP and I look forward to welcoming at Bob Arum and Top Rank team in our beautiful country, Ghana, next year. Full details below. Hashtag Isaac Dogboe, hashtag Ni Hao. Yeah, that's right. Ni Hao. Man, what a fucking beast. And also, Top Rank going back to Ghana. Because I think... Not back to Ghana, but back to Africa, because I think Top Rank promoted the Ali George Foreman fight, and was it that Tanzania, I believe. There's some history there for Bob Arum and Top Rank to go back to Africa, and I think obviously Isaac Dogboe is a guy with a lot of potential, not only from a fighting standpoint, being a amazing power puncher with an extreme athleticism. That's funny, Fat Apples. I didn't realize it said he was British. That's funny. But I believe he's straight Ghanaiese. Like, he's born and raised there, I believe. There's a video of him, training in Ghana from an early age. So, BoxRec may just have that wrong. I'll try to contact Gray Johnson about that. But anyways, digressing. Dogboe being not only an extreme talent in the ring, I think he has a lot of potential outside of it. I think he has sort of that clean-cut branding that you could put on him. Says the right things. He's eloquent, articulate. You can do a lot with a guy like Isaac Dogboe, more so than a guy like, let's say, Terrence Crawford. Because Isaac Dogboe, even though he may not be the most boastful and energetic talker, he seems happy during an interview. Compared to a Crawford who does not seem happy during an interview. I feel like that's the big difference. You can be, let's say, a little bit on the boring side if you have something else attached to it, like an Anthony Joshua, for example, or even way back in the day, like a Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard wasn't smooth talking and witty. He wasn't that guy. He was Mr. Golden Boy, and he said all the right things for his branding, like Anthony Joshua. And I think Isaac Dogboe could be a little bit in that mold. And plus, having that power in the lower weight classes always helps. That's a God-saving sort of factor for him in terms of star power, drawing power. Because those lower weight class guys that don't have that pop in their hands, it's hard for promoters to really want to put that marketing dollars behind them. Isaac Dogboe is not that. Isaac Dogboe shuts the lights out consistently. So definitely going to be something to watch going forward. Santiago, text me on the back end. I see that you're on the queue. I'm going to wait till after the UFC topics, and I assume you want to talk about that as well. But just let me know if you actually want to come in earlier. But let's move on to MMA topics of the day. And, man, let's get to the UFC 230 news and information because it's just sad. It's sad. Brett Okamoto of ESPN saying UFC president Dana White tells me Shevchenko Eubanks is a done deal, but I've now been told that there was a miscommunication between one of the parties in the UFC, blah, 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 saying stay tuned. And then rather quickly after that, Mark Ramundi from MMAfighting.com confirming that initial report by Brett Okamoto saying Shevchenko versus Eubanks for UFC flyweight title will headline UFC 230 on November 3rd at MSG. This is pretty obviously not a good move. Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier should be the main event, regardless if it's for a title or not. Whether you're putting it for the new 165-pound division and make a new division. And I'll be honest, I can understand the UFC not wanting to do that. Creating an entire division is difficult and hard. They've had trouble with it at flyweight. They've had trouble with it at women's featherweight. They've had trouble with it with almost every division they've had when they've expanded upon, except for the WEC and how they basically imported all of their stock and fighters, which basically gave them, in-depth divisions at 145 pounds and 135 pounds. But they don't have that analog for women's 125, men's 165. They don't have that. Yes, they can obviously draw upon 170 and 155 and get probably a good top 10. We all know that. However, it's still a lot of work, and there's still possible negative ramifications to it or not. I understand the UFC probably being hesitant about that. However, Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier should 100% be the main event of that pay-per-view, and it should be for 5 rounds, even in a non-title fight. It's clear as day. When you put, let's say, a great fight with marketability underneath a main event that doesn't have that sort of marketability factor, the pay-per-view does suffer. It's sort of been noted and proven that fans look to that main event. UFC, blank, X versus Y. That's all they look at. You can have the UFC poster have everyone on the card featured on it, but who are the 2 biggest people in that poster? Who are the 2 first names you see? It's going to be Shevchenko versus Eubanks, and not Chris Eubanks from the UK. And no disrespect to Sijara Eubanks, she is a credible women's flyweight. She is. Her record may not show that yet, but she is. She has the talent. She's a very unrefined, let's say, like Jessica Andrade, without maybe the athletic ability added to it. However, she has skill. However, she is not of the level of Shevchenko, and that is clearly obvious. this pay-per-view will suffer. It will, 100%. To act like this will not hurt the bottom line for this card is ridiculous. To act like putting Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier will do less pay-per-view buys than Shevchenko versus Eubanks is ridiculous. And this is purely because the UFC doesn't want to bend to the will of a Diaz brother. Let's be completely honest about what that really is. And Eric Rose is saying Sijara would have been Montano. That's a good point. I wanted to bring that up because some people may not be clued in on that. Sijara Eubanks actually was penciled in because she beat Roxanne Modafferi in the Ultimate Fighter to fight Nico Montano for the vacant UFC flyweight title after that Ultimate Fighter season. However, she did not make weight, which is another point I wanted to bring up. She did not make weight. She had kidney failure that fight week, and they obviously had to put in Roxanne Modafferi. So not only does the UFC decide, let's not put Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier as main event. Let's put Shevchenko versus Eubanks. Shevchenko is a non-proven UFC commodity. She's not a draw. Eubanks is an entire non-entity. Joe Rogan even came out on his podcast today and said, I've never heard of her, which might speak about his research ability as a UFC commentator in 2018, or at least focus on it. But again, that is a sign of no one knows her. Like, I had to go back and watch tape on her today to be refreshed on who she was. Like, I forgot about the Lauren Murphy fight. I forgot about the, what's her name? Ooh, I forget her name. Allison. Anyways, her loss in the Invicta. You know, I had to go back and watch these fights because I forgot about it. It wasn't on top of my mind. But however, you're right, Eric. She would have beat Nico Montano in that tough house. You know, and that's not saying much, unfortunately. And Eric saying exactly what I'm thinking. LOL, if Eubanks misses weight, that would be terrible for the UFC. Imagine that. Imagine that we get through all of this. It comes time for fight week, and this fight doesn't actually happen, and they have to put Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier as the main event, regardless. That might legitimately happen, folks. Like, I hope we're all prepared for that. Just a random guy saying, exactly, man. I don't know what that word is. I think you meant she. Oh, she's even a small name with all due respect. No, she's not. Like, Shevchenko isn't a draw in any capacity, and Eubanks is a complete non-entity. Nate Diaz has been a part of the two biggest UFC pay-per-views of all time. All time. And you're not going to put him back in it? Like, come on. Like, we know the game. And to report some more bad news, because it's the UFC, man. Goddamn. Dana White coming out and confirming that Daniel Cormier will likely be stripped of his light heavyweight title for obviously the Jon Jones Alexander Gustassfon rematch for UFC 232, I believe is the penciled in date.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
This is atrocious. Eddie, you need to talk to Dana White here.
Are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?
Because Dana White obviously is not thinking straight. To want to, I mean, maybe these individual moves in of themselves isn't that big of a deal, but combined today with the news of Dana White saying he's going to strip Daniel Cormier of his light heavyweight title, instead of just putting an interim title for Jon Jones, Alexander Gustassfon, which they've been happy about before. But for some reason now, for Daniel Cormier, they're not going to do that. They're going to strip him and not allow him to be dual champion fighting Brock Lesnar. And then also not have the narrative of when Jon Jones beats Alexander Gustassfon, which we all can probably safely assume will happen. That when DC beats Brock Lesnar, which again, we should all safely assume happens. That when DC fights Jon Jones again for the third time, it should be for both belts. It should be simultaneously for the heavyweight and light heavyweight strap. It should be. And yet they're going to ruin that promotional narrative by stripping Daniel Cormier. And again, with the UFC 230, they're going to ruin the promotional aspect they have with Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier as a 100% a pay-per-view main event if they pushed it right for Shevchenko versus Eubanks. What is the UFC thinking promotionally here? You know, in the last 24 to 48 hours, all these decisions have been made, and they've all been piss poor. Every single one, except for maybe one, but we know about that news I'm going to get to later for about a week or so. So I'm not going to say really that is combined with this news. The UFC really needs to get their head out their asses because this is bullshit. Fighter IQ, aka Ron the Mastermind over at TBV saying, poor DC. Yeah, this is just, I said this on Twitter. Fighters, this is why you should contact Project Spearhead and Leslie Smith. Are cases like this. Not the Nate Diaz one versus Shevchenko's main event. That's not really what union's for. It could be, in a sense. But for cases like Daniel Cormier being stripped of his title, just, a few months, 2 months after he won it? Like, come on. Come on. This is ridiculous. Shame on the UFC there. Let's get to more of the news before we get to callers. Max Holloway confirming that Holloway versus Ortega is confirmed for UFC 231. Obviously, the plan was to have Shevchenko versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk on this card with Holloway versus Ortega. That is seemingly obviously scrapped. God knows what the UFC is thinking there. Just atrocious shit. And let's wrap up with this last sort of fight announcement of the day. Elias Theodore versus Eric Anders. Eric Anders, coming off the loss to Thiago Santos merely a week and a half ago, is set for UFC 231. Same event as Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, per Aaron Bronstetter. So, good fight at middleweight. Going to be interesting to see who wins that one. And let's get to the callers of the day. Again, you can call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. If you are international, email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com. You can get a free international permanent call-in link. Santiago in LA, how you doing, man?
Doing good, dude. Doing good. Just got back from trying to check out the ticket points for, the December fight.
Mm-hmm.
Really forget. Just know that the cheapest is $75. They cap off at $1,000, and they should be available tomorrow for those that I'm trying to get tickets for.
Yo, Santiago, get me a ticket.
Oh, are you confirming?
Yeah,
Are you confirming on air that you actually want a ticket?
I'm confirming on air that I'm going to Wilder Fury, and I'm taking the night off from the show. I'm confirming it. Plus, Staples Center is a fun venue for fights. It is.
Yo, you need to give me the air horn for that, man. I'm excited that you're going. That's what's up, ladies and gentlemen. MCR will be live at Staples Center, even if there is no show. So It's going to be fun. And I am excited. I am very excited to hear that they're going to be doing Garcia versus Commey, man, because I haven't seen Richard Commey really since his fight with Denis Shafikov. And it'll be interesting to see how he holds up against a guy of Mikey's caliber. Mikey's obviously very technically sound with the fundamentals and everything. And Richard is a hard guy. He's going to give you a hard fight, and it'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm very curious to see how Mikey does as his first defense as a unified champion.
I agree. And very quickly, a little bit of breaking news. Jon Jones finally making a statement on the UFC wanting to strip Daniel Cormier of his title. Jon Jones going on Twitter and saying, "Bro, you know in your heart it's the right thing. The belt was never yours in the first place. You did a good job. You make a great babysitter. Daddy's home now." Oh, God damn. So, yeah, I just wanted to quickly...
Yes.
I
hate that they're making DC almost look like he's the John Ruiz of a champion. Like, that man has gotten that title back so many times now. And it's sad because you and I were there to see him become a double champion, too, to become the heavyweight champion. And, it's going to suck if really what they're angling for is to try and make Jon Jones a double champion, since at this point DC basically just is the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, but my thing would be is that you don't need to strip DC to do that. Like, that's an unnecessary move to that goal of Jon Jones being a dual champ. Right? Like, you don't need to strip DC to do that. You can beat Daniel Cormier for that position.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. Like, some of the things that like you and I have touched on about the things that they should be doing that is a bit more excessive in boxing would be very perfectly applicable right here in these particular situations. You know, the tune-ups, you know, the interim titles, you know. The UFC does not have that plethora, so it's okay if they want to put it in effect for cases like these, you know, because, you know, DC has is a respectable champion light heavy, became a dual champion. You know, Jon Jones has been popped twice, lost and been stripped the title. And so it's kind of like, why not like just bring the title full circle, have that, you know, effect of Ali Frazier, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's obviously slight parallels with like an Ali, you know, obviously, you know, going through his jail sentence and all that, you know, having years taken away from his prime. The heavyweight division had to go on without him. I think the light heavyweight division had to go on without Jon Jones. And obviously, I understand Jon Jones' statement, like it's a PR angle, and I don't fault him for that. Like it's first off, it's funny, saying "Daddy's home" now, like that's good, like that's some good shit talk. I'm not gonna really hate on that, but it's the UFC I'm upset with. The UFC wanting to put DC and Jon Jones in this position when it's unnecessary. An interim title for once in the UFC's lifetime is 100% applicable in the situation. But they refuse to do it. Why? Because they like Jon Jones. That is clearly the case.
Yeah, they're basically just diving head first, making every single mistake they could in one go right there. That's exactly the impression I'm getting from them. Holy hell, man. I swear. Poor DC. He definitely needs the help of the union.
Agreed. Now, thoughts on UFC 230. Shevchenko versus Eubanks over Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier as pay-per-view headliner.
Now, obviously, you know that I'm a big supporter of women's sports, especially in combat sports. But it makes no sense to make Shevchenko versus Eubanks the main event. Like, what the hell, you know? I was pretty excited to see Nate come back. I have not seen him fight since his fight with Conor McGregor. And to be hearing that this is the main event, you know, Shevchenko versus Eubanks is like, wait, you know, hold the phone here. Like, first off, I don't really know who either of these women are, and it makes zero sense how they even earned that shot in the first place to be the headliner.
Well, unfortunately, you know, like we've talked about this before on the show, like there's differences in mentalities in the culture in MMA and boxing, right? For the UFC specifically, they've always been of the mindset that title fight should be first over the drawing power. Now, of course, there's cases where that did not happen. Conor McGregor, for example, is one of them. They've put him in non-title fights over title fights because it's Conor McGregor. But they like Conor McGregor. They don't like Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz has gone on Twitter how many times in the last 12 months and said, fuck at the UFC. You know, like that to me is why he is not getting his due shine as a pay-per-view headliner, even in a non-title fight. Because even casuals, such as yourself, Santiago, know that Nate Diaz is a draw. People know him. And to act like putting him as a co-main event will somehow save pay-per-view buy rate for that event is asinine, and it's just ignorant on the UFC side. The data does not prove that.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's just a whole mess being made even more of a mess. Like they're basically just dumping oil on a fire at that point in terms of making something worse. And
I'd rather have Jon Jones versus
know.
anyone as the main event.
At this point, yeah, why not, right? Shit, you know, they're the draws. You know, they're the ones that we're attracted to. You know, this perceived formality is just stupid, and I can't dig it. I really just cannot dig it. I really don't have much more to say on top of that. You know, I'm excited for Ortega versus Holloway. You know, that should be a fun fight. Looks interesting. Can't wait. And then obviously this Saturday, I'll leave till Wednesday, but I'm excited for that too. I might just join you for that one on Saturday.
That'd be fun, man. And I mean, you can always join me on Wednesday as well. I mean, just saying. I know you're working a lot, but always it's always open here, man. This spot's always here. This microphone's always there. But yeah, Wednesday tomorrow, our preview show of all of this weekend's action is definitely going to be a fun show. So make sure you guys tune in for that one tomorrow live on YouTube, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. in the UK. Obviously, podcast from iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc., wherever you find podcasts. I'm going to review, obviously, UFC 229, World Boxing Super Series, Matchroom USA is sort of real first event on DAZN. And plus, I think there's some more cards this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Serkat Sorungsvi on one championship. Him defending his belt against Iron Diaz on a MMA card, nonetheless. That's going to be interesting. Definitely my show, personified in an event. I'm going to say that. Thank you, MMA and Boxing Gods, for putting, one championship and Serkat Sorungsvi, a top 10 pound-for-pound boxer, all on the same event. I'm hyped for that one. Like Santiago said, can't wait for tomorrow. Be back there. And obviously Saturday, live fight chats and media reactions, all of that fun stuff. So stay tuned for that. Be back tomorrow. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe if you're listening on podcast. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, wait. I was going to actually tease it, but we got a 1-star review on iTunes. Yes. I've been waiting.
I want smoke.
Yes. 1-star reviews are always my favorite. So we're going to stay and read this one as I pull it up because it's worth it. It is so worth it. And for anyone that's been listening to me since, from the TVV days, you know how I leaned certain ways socially and politically, just being honest. And apparently a new listener did not like that at all. And it's pretty good. Let's get some dramatic music out. Yes, review time. And again, you could do this as well, ladies and gentlemen. You could leave a review on iTunes. I have to read them. That is sort of my own rule that I have. Whether it's a 1-star, 5-star, whatever it is, I read all of these reviews. So, let's get to it. By JWV082232. Great name, by the way. JWV082232. Really dominant name there. Gave me a 1-star, saying too political. My God, the white guilt you hear on these shows is awful. You're white. Accept it. What a terrible show. And I gotta say, this is only better. And let me show you guys this because it's pretty good. It's better because there are so many spelling errors here that it's fucking hilarious. That I truly believe that I'm happy listeners like this guy or woman. I'm assuming he's a male. Let's be honest. I'm glad he gave me a 1-star and he's not listening. My show is not geared towards people of this ilk. Just being very, very honest. However, I am totally not surprised he had this many spelling errors. So I want to read it again. And again, it's on. Whoa, that's a throwback right there, right? But I want to read it again. Let me play the dramatic music again. And I want you guys to read it. If you're listening on podcast, I know you can't read it. Go on YouTube right now and find it, because it is worth it. My God, the white guilt. And by the way, anytime somebody says white guilt and they're serious about that term, disregard them completely as a person. They are probably a Twitter bot, personified. Let's be real. The white guilt you hear on these show is awful. You're white. Accept it. What a terrible show. God bless this person. Salute. This show would not be the same without people like that. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. I read it yesterday, and I was so happy. I enjoyed it so much. Now I can actually see the chat because I have some stuff blocking it. Fat Apple saying 1-star, shouldn't it be a 5-star review? Fat Apple, shouldn't you go leave a 5-star review?
I want smoke.
Just saying. Fat Apple saying, was it because you didn't know about Jeff Finich? That's funny, and that's a throwback, and I like that. Good little stitch back there, Fat Apples. White guilt, question mark, main event mark, accept it. Yes, and for podcast listeners, you spell accept with EXCEPT, like the exception to. God, it was so awesome. But anyways, I hope everyone has a great day. Like I've said, hit the like button on the way out, share the show, subscribe, go leave a review on iTunes. I love reading them. Even if you hate the show, go drop a review. I don't care. It helps. It's all exposure. It all helps. Anyways, have a great day. See y'all tomorrow. Peace.